starting to realize how yin and yang really work. I think it's an interesting topic just because I think most people have heard of yin and yang. They've heard of balance, they've heard of good versus evil, God versus the devil, things of this nature. But a lot of times it's hard to apply that to our personal lives. And I think like yin and yang is something I've believed in for a long time, especially with like my experience with life. But I've always believed in it, but my definition of it has kind of changed a little bit and what it looks like in my life. So I really am looking at yin and yang in terms of input and output. You have to go through hard times in life. You have to go through the sucky parts of life to enjoy the finer things in life. And I think that people that never go through um, difficult times, they can't truly enjoy the good times nearly as well as those who have gone through those. There's a quote, I'm not sure who it's by, but it's like, you cannot wish for both an easy life and a good character. The cost of either is the other. Meaning, like, you can't have a good character and an easy life, and you can't have an easy life and a good character. So, you have to go through hard times to build good character. And if you want to, an easy life, then you're never going to have um, the trials and tribulations, which henceforth equates to not having good character. Now, the thing is that in life, everybody has the potential to be of good character. And it's really just up to you to some extent. Obviously, a lot of people are just forced into bad situations, but sometimes, in first world countries, we can kind of choose the path that we go on to some extent, and whether or not we're gonna pursue these hard things. But one of the things I realize is since I was like, since around my teenage years, I started to, try really hard at certain things, and a lot of times that would come at a cost of going through, pain and suffering. And it could be something as simple as just like physical. Like I hated cross country when I was a kid. I hated running, absolutely hated it. So I joined the cross country team and did that throughout for many years for the simple fact that I thought it would help grow my character and to teach me lessons, which is exactly what it did. And it helped me appreciate the times where I didn't have to run. And, I'd always been told throughout my life that I do things in an extreme measure. So this is through all things. When I relax like to the full extent, like I'm doing nothing. But then when I'm working, I'm really working hard. I um, just remember seeing in front of me and experiencing the both sides of yin and yang, and that was really mainly how. One other thing that's involved with yin and yang is the idea of risk. So the reason I wanted to bring that up is because you might say like, oh well, there's people that are born into extreme good conditions, these hyper privileged individuals, maybe like the Kardashians or, like these Nepo babies. Um, and yeah, they can be good, born into good situations and, be born into wealth, be born into opportunities, things like that. But if they never take a risk, they never actually get fulfillment. So I actually wanted to kind of use gambling as an analogy for this. So gambling, I think the reason why people like gambling so much is because you have to take a risk. And people are putting up large sums of capital, in Vegas and stuff, and they're really risking it all, and that's what gets the engines going in their mind and stuff. That's what's making them feel fulfilled, is because they're taking that risk. And what I realized is that, we've built a society in a world where technology is so advanced that, sometimes you could just be a pretty girl and go on the internet and post pictures of yourself and you just have a really good looking face. And all of a sudden now you're being put in positions where you can make a lot of money, where you can get a lot of fame and have influence over people, right? And you might be thinking, I remember I was thinking this, I was like, that just seems like a cheat code. Like that almost like beats the yin and yang of the world, because it's like these people are just skipping straight to the point. But then I sort of sat back and realized, I was like, a lot of times you might see like clips where it's like those same people, they're like crying, they're like, oh, I'm so like whatever mental health issues they have. And it really, what it all stems down to is that they have no fulfillment because they never took risk. And the thing is, it's been advantageous for humans for so long to take risk. And you might be like, what? If you take risks, you have a chance of failure. And throughout human history, that could mean death, and stuff like that, which is true. But it's also the people that took the biggest risks that survived and then passed on those genes. And so, risk has always been the biggest, I would say, factor in the equation of success for a lot of people. Like anybody who's built a great empire, it's not just hard work that gets you there. It's you have to be in this position where you could lose a lot. And so, to kind of explain this better, the guy that works on the corner and sells churros, in New York City, he might work 70 hours, 80 hours a week, working his tail off to, make some money. And he works a lot harder than Jeff Bezos, probably ever did, even in Jeff Bezos's prime, Um, but Jeff Bezos is going to make 1,000x the money that guy ever will, right? Even more. And the reason this is because there has to be some element of risk. I mean, if you know that like something like a food stand, that if you go into a city that there's going to be people that buy your food, that's just a guaranteed. So you're going to have some sort of income. How much you make is going to differentiate stuff like that, but there's really no risk in that because it's just almost guaranteed that you have like a client base, you have customers. I wouldn't say clients, but you have customers, that are doing these different sorts of things. And they're guaranteed they're going to be there. And so what I realize is that in life you have to have your back against the wall, right? And that's what risk really is. So if this is where you are in life and this is like your back up against the wall, rock bottom, however you want to call it, right? The amount of distance here is how much risk you can really take on. So people that live, maybe they have hundreds of thousands of dollars saved up, but they have this insane business idea, right? They're hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're not in debt, so that gap is way bigger. Now they're gonna risk all of that, so the gap between the risk is bigger, right? But you need to have your back against the wall. Now, why am I saying that? If you've ever had a situation where a dog has tried to attack you, or maybe there was like you were in some sort of physical altercation in real life or whatever, you'll realize that it's human nature to pretty much avoid conflict at all costs. So I used to work this job and I was walking out in neighborhoods, and I would oftentimes encounter dogs. And there were a few times where I got attacked by dogs. And for the first couple times that I did it, I ran because it was just like natural instinct. I'm just gonna run, which pretty much activated the predator instinct and the dog, whatever, and it ran after me. And the dog starts to scratch me and it starts trying to bite me. And one of the weird things that I realized is that I was still not really fighting back against the dog until I realized that I was actually in danger of some actual injury, right? So when it first starts clawing, these were like medium-sized dogs. None of them that I got attacked by were like big. They were medium, but medium dogs can still do damage. But I just really wasn't sure whether or not the dog was actually viewed me as a threat and really wanted to hurt me, or if it wanted to scare me, or what it was. So dog came up to me, and it was just like my mind's natural reaction was like, oh, like don't start going after the dog because maybe it's gonna, you know, be more aggressive or whatever. And it wasn't until the dogs actually started to start like ripping my skin and stuff like that, there was like, okay, it's go time. And then I start, getting very aggressive with the dog and was able to go all out. And it's the same thing in real life. If you ever actually try to get in a fight with somebody, it's significantly harder than you think it is. Excuse me. Just for the simple fact that people avoid aggression and stuff like that at all costs. And that's not just in the actual physical sense, that's just in life, being extremely ambitious about opportunities in your career, whether it be trying to start a business, trying to land that job, whether it be in like relationships where you're really hard pursuing this relationship with somebody that's probably out of your league or something like that. It a lot of times it's just like natural, human behavior to like hold back. But the thing is that when you do that, when you hold back, when you only you just go through high school, then you go to college and you try to get good grades and land a good internship and make connections and get a job, and then go slave away at some corporate 9 to 5, you realize you never actually took the risk. And it was the risk the whole time that makes everything worth it and makes life fulfilling. And so, what does this have to do with yin and yang? Well, what people don't understand is that it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. You can never, or how advanced or how much our technology changes, our society changes. It's never going to beat the yin and yang in life. And so you have to take on some type of risk, um, and really be in a position where you're forcing yourself to go against the wall. Whether that be financial risk, boom, go back against the wall now, put all my money into this. Whether it be reputation risk, whether it be um, security or like safety risk, whatever it is, right? You have to take that on, because the thing is, if you never take on some type of risk, then you can never really see the extreme benefits in life. This is the yin and yang that I'm talking about. So the greater your gap here is the greater your gap from this point then forward. If you're only taking this much of a risk right here, then it can only go that good, right? And that's the yin and yang of life. And so, these like influencers or these people that kind of get almost like the fast pass. If you've ever been to Six Flags, the fast pass, cut to the front of the line, that sort of thing. The thing is that those people, they never enjoy the ride as much. Why? Because they can ride 20 rides in one day, and the other guy can only ride five. And the guy that rides five experiences the idea of scarcity, and scarcity creates value. And it's kind of the same thing, in real life. It's that because good times are so rare, and you really saw the other end of it, that makes you enjoy the good things so much more. And oftentimes risk is associated with that. So for like the gambling, that's just one of the things that people get really addicted to, because in their own lives they really didn't take any risk. They kind of just did what was expected of them, or the past that was kind of cut out. um and so what's my take from this? I mean, obviously I would encourage you to take a risk, but also, don't be afraid to be viciously ambitious about things. Um, Opportunities. What I'm slowly learning and realizing is that opportunities are oftentimes created and not given. Obviously, sometimes they're given, but um, like for me, I remember thinking about like, oh, like how am I gonna, meet my wife? Like one day it's just gonna randomly happen. We'll just meet each other and like it will click or blah blah blah. And now I'm realizing it's like, no, I'm gonna have to, go up and pretty much instigate some sort of situation, um or conversation to meet my wife. And things don't just come to you. I've talked about this in a past video, because if they did just come to you, then you've never incurred the risk of that certain moment. Maybe it's rejection is your risk, or like public embarrassment, right? But if you never take some sort of risk, then what, like, is there really going to be a reward that's really, worthy or enticing? It's an interesting question for sure. um but yeah, just understand that yin and yang is real no matter what, and you're gonna have to put in the work and take the risk if you want to get to certain places in life. For me personally, I've been saving up a lot of money. I've been working really really hard, um, to pursue my dreams, and I need to buy a bunch of equipment for this big project that I'm working on. And last week, I was working full time in school full time, and trying to go to the gym and stuff like that. And that's everyday people things. I'm not complaining or whatever. But I remember just being like, man, I'm exhausted. I've been doing this for months. I haven't had a break, haven't hung out with friends in months. And I had to get this piece of equipment, and to get it, it was like a new piece of technology that just came out, at the store. And so I camped out overnight, and I was like, man, I'm getting no sleep these days. I'm just always where now I got to go camp out at this place just to get it. But then I realized, I was like, this is what I want. And you might be asking, like, why does he want that? Well, it's just that yin and yang. It's like, oh, if I want my future to be like super awesome, which I do, you do, who doesn't, right? you have to experience both sides of yin and yang, right? You have to experience the bad sides too. And the worse they are, that means the better that your future has the potential to be. And so, that's super encouraging because sometimes you go through really hard times, um, times of, extreme loneliness, of loss, of, self consciousness, whatever it may be, man. And it's going to suck, but, that just makes the success all the more sweeter.